Hello out there, you're watching everything you need to know about Mage Knight board game. This is part 28, and in this one I'm just going to explain how the map works and how these tiles are laid out for the various scenarios. If you've been watching up to this point, you already know all the rules, you know all the mechanics, and you know how to play the first training mission, which is the first reconnaissance. In that one, when we set the map up, we had tile A facing up, not B. We had tile A facing up, and we had tiles 1 through 11 on the countryside tiles. We had one core city tile mixed in with two non-city core tiles, and those three tiles were on the bottom of these 11 tiles. We took the first two tiles off the top, which were 1 and 2, and we put them face up here. Now I should mention that what I have right now is not 1 through 11 in order. I just put these randomly. I'm also not orienting these correctly. To orient them, you have to match up the stars and circles in the corners here and make sure all the numbers face the right way. I'm just doing this to show the shape of the map. That's all we're looking for here. But be sure that when you do explore the map, you orient them properly so that stars and stars are together, circles and circles are together, and all the numbers are facing the same way. In fact, you can look at this and see this is all sideways. Anyway, what we're building when we do that is called a wedge. Now, a wedge at the beginning of the game is going to be starting tile side A up with these two, or any two tiles, face up. That's the way the map looks at the beginning. As you explore, you are going to add, and you can now have 3 across. So as you can see, this is going to open up like a triangle basically. It's going to be like an ice cream cone or a wedge. It's just going out in this direction. The coastline continues indefinitely along this route and along this route here. And it expands. So next we could put 4 and then 5 and so on. You get the idea. A wedge map is good when you're playing solo. It's also good when you're playing with 2 players or 3 players and you don't mind the fact that they're going to be bunched up. Okay, so the issue with this wedge map is real estate, and it's having enough room for the players that you have. And I'm going to show you some other maps now that involve opening up a little bit more so that you have more room to move around without everybody taking advantage of the same features. I also want to point out 2 rules that exist with a wedge map that we don't talk about in the first reconnaissance. And they actually have to do with these core tiles here. Now, when you put out a new tile, each new tile must be adjacent to 2 other tiles. And you can see that this tile, for instance, is adjacent to this tile and this tile. This tile, when I laid it out, was adjacent to both this tile and this tile. This tile was adjacent to this tile and this tile. The other thing you can do with countryside tiles only, that's these greenback tiles, is you can explore in such a way that they're either adjacent to 2 other tiles, or they're adjacent to a tile that is adjacent to 2 other tiles. Does that make sense? For example, this is a legal move. This is adjacent to a tile that is adjacent to 2 other tiles. If I wanted to continue to explore and go over here or over here, I wouldn't be able to do that because now it's adjacent to a tile that is not adjacent to 2 other tiles. It would have to go here, and now it's adjacent to 3 other tiles, and this is adjacent to 2 other tiles, and we're all good. If you are exploring a core tile, on the other hand, in this case, this core tile is adjacent to a tile that's adjacent to 2 other tiles. That doesn't work. A core tile needs to be adjacent to 2 other tiles. And the reason for that, as you can see, is here's a city. Now, this city can't be spread apart from other cities. You can also see this is on the coastline. You know, imagine this imaginary line going this way. You cannot explore a new core tile on the coastline. Now, it can be the outermost tile to the right or to the left, but it can't be along this barrier here, this coastline, this imaginary line that goes on indefinitely. The reason for that is if we were to explore another city, and let's say we have it over here on this coastline, Now for this conquest, these two cities are really far apart and a player is not going to be able to travel back and forth. In fact, look, it's got lakes in between it, so it's even worse. So those are the only two rules you need to remember with a wedge. You cannot explore a core tile along the coastline. That just means along this imaginary edge. And each tile must be adjacent to two other tiles. A countryside tile can be adjacent to a tile that's adjacent to two other tiles, but a core tile can't. Okay, I hope that made sense. That was tile A side up, tile A on the starting tile. If you flip it upside down, and again notice how this cliff cuts sharply this way. If you flip it over, and you can see that on both sides this really opens out more. Okay, so that's why we have this side up, because now when we start the game, we're going to have an open map. And we're going to have an open map that is limited. So I just put out 3 columns here. Okay, so instead of having the starting tile and 2 other tiles, I have 3 other tiles here. Now what I can do if I want to have an open map and I want to limit it to 3 columns, and by the way, you wouldn't have this core tile here. I'm just putting tiles down just to show it. But you have these countryside tiles, and then you would put down more tiles here. This world is totally wrong. All this stuff's upside down. It looks like there was an earthquake and all sorts of stuff, but I'm just trying to show the layout of the map. Okay, now as you can see, I have 3 columns here, I have 3 columns here. I'm going to continue exploring, and this is just going to go forward in a straight line. All it's going to do is keep extending forward with 3 columns, like so. And you can see how instead of the coastline going out, it's now going straight ahead this way and straight ahead this way. What this map is good for is if I have 3 or 4 players and I want the interaction to be close. In a 2-player game, the players are going to be spread out. They're never going to have PvP combat, and they're probably not going to take each other's different features here. One person can go this way, one person can go this way, and they're not going to interfere with one another at all. It does make it a little bit tougher when they want to have a city conquest, because this guy's got to wait for this guy to get all the way over there. So you have to decide if this is too broad or too vast in a 2 or 3-player game. But with a 4-player game, sometimes a 3-player game, this is actually an ideal size. Now, I'm going to leave this map intact the way it is. This is an open map limited to 3 columns. Another thing you can do is you have this first row here. The second row, you could explore a tile on this side. Okay, and you just expanded this to a 4th column. The 4th column must be on the right. Same thing here. Oh, I put a core tile on the coastline. Just ignore that. This is a row of 4, and then over here we have another row of 4, etc. So you can see this is a broader map. This is going to now have 4 columns going from right to left. If you have a 4-player game, this is going to open it up and make it so they're not bumping into each other all the time. Okay, that's an open map limited to 4 columns. If you're playing a 4-player game and you may want to have a lot of open space, you could even go so far as to have a 5th column. Again, I have my row of 3. I don't add anything to this row, it stays 3. But the next row I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have my 3 columns, plus an extra one on the left, plus an extra one on the right. Now take a look at that map. Gosh, they look so tiny from here. As you can see, that is a wide open map. It's very, very vast. You want to make sure that you have 4 players doing this in a competitive game. In a cooperative game, you're going to have a maximum of 3 players, so this is too vast. But this is what a fully open map looks like. There are no limitations. It's wide open. It's 5 columns from left to right. It's a lot of open space. It's a lot of room to move around, and wow, this is just a lot of room. So those are the maps that you have. You have your wedge map, which is side A face up, and then 2 tiles, 3 tiles, 4 tiles extending out in an ice cream cone shape. On the coastline, you do not explore any core tiles, and all your countryside tiles need to be adjacent to 2 other tiles, or adjacent to another tile that's adjacent to 2 other tiles. All your core tiles have to be adjacent to 2 other tiles. Flip this face over to side B. You start off with 3 face-up countryside tiles here, and then you can explore so that you always have columns of 3, and that would be an open map limited to 3 columns. You can add a 4th column here to the right side, that would be an open map limited to 4 columns, and you can add a 5th column to the left side if you want to, that would be a fully open map. Different scenarios are going to call for different things. Of course, you can always make adjustments as you feel comfortable. I hope this explains how the tiles interact and how the map works. Again, 4 core tiles with cities, 4 core tiles without cities, 11 countryside tiles, and 1 starting tile for a total of 20 tiles. Next, I'm going to talk about the different scenarios, and so please come back for that. But thank you so much for watching. This has been everything you need to know about Mage Knight board game. Until next time, GLHF. Good luck, have fun.